Hello, it's Biofrost. Today we are doing the patch 13.20 review, presented by SIG. Right, so this is a pretty big patch. There's quite a few changes. First to Cassante, some changes to jungle, which are pretty impactful, and some snowballing adjustments. And then we have a couple of changes here and there. So the first change is Akshan. He's been seeing a lot of play in elite play, like high elo, probably around like Diamond, Master Plus. This change is just to kind of nerf him a little bit. I still think he'll be good, but just make him a little bit less good. All right, Belveth. They're changing basically her early game strength. I think she's a highly contested jungler right now, especially in elite play. They're making her damage or damage reduction be a little bit less, so it'll be easier to kill her when she's using her E. This critical stabby stabs is interesting because now her E can critically strike. I'm interested to see how that will take form, but a little bit weaker in early game, but makes up for some scaling later on in the game. Galio right now doesn't really see much gameplay, but I think this buff will probably make it so that people will pick him with other champs that are good with him. So we'll probably see more Kindred Galio, possibly more Camille Galio, maybe Kaisa Galio. He's definitely still not like a overwhelmingly like strong meta pick, but you'll see him in niche scenarios more often. All right, Jinx changes. I think this change actually makes it so that Jinx has quite a few opportunities to pop off. Now her passive can stack with other takedowns. So if you're popping off in a team fight, this makes it so that she pops off even harder. Her ulti did also get buffed, which makes it so that you can use it more often, does more damage. I think this makes it so that Jinx will probably see more play. We'll end up seeing more Jinx Thresh, more Jinx Rakan, Jinx Nautilus, lanes like this. She'll definitely be played a lot more often. All right, Cassante. There's a lot of changes here. Almost all of his abilities, well, actually all of his abilities are being changed. I think in elite play, he leaves little room for counterplay. And if there is counterplay, you have to be very, very aware of what he's bad against, counter matchups, and play accordingly. So these changes are meant to kind of make it easier to outplay him and make his abilities more telegraphed. And as a result, they're buffing his abilities so that he gets some like consolation prize. I think that there's a lot to read, but TLDR, he is easily like more playable against. You can have more playmaking, you can have more, you have a better shot at outplaying him. Whereas before, if you're really good at Cassante, it would feel very hard. But his abilities are buffed, so I think in lower elo, Cassante will actually be better because the players that are playing Cassante are not as skilled at him, but his abilities will be stronger, so they won't have missed the combos that are no longer possible. Minor Kaisa nerf, she's been highly contested in pro play and high level play for a long time, so I think this is needed. Couple of Melio buffs. I think ever since Melio's release, he's been seeing a decent amount of play, but recently hasn't been as noticeable because he did get nerfed, and I think after that nerf, people just stopped playing him altogether. But this buff will make it so that he's going to be played more often in lanes such as Lucian Melio, maybe more Jinx Melio with the other Jinx buff, and we'll probably also see other like Melio combos like Cog Melio. So yeah, I think he'll be played. Morgana. These changes make it so that her Black Shield is a little bit longer, so there will be more counterplay in terms of like melee supports against her. So I think a lot of frustration in lower elo results from her Black Shield. So this kind of assuages some of that. Her W is a little bit buffed, her R is also a little bit buffed, so they're kind of buffing mid lane Morgana and jungle Morgana at the same time. Her R is also going to be a pretty nice quality of life buff where you get the movement speed regardless of whether or not you're facing them or running away. So this is pretty nice. I think Morgana will probably see play in combination with Caitlyn or maybe like Varus Ashe lanes, but she'll probably still fit the same niche scenarios where you're playing against melee supports and you're mainly using it for counter engage, but she wouldn't be overpowered as a result of these changes. Quinn in high elo is kind of annoying at sometimes because a lot of the high elo Quinns play her as a one trick. So this is just a minor nerf so that she's not wrecking havoc as often. Minor Zed nerf. This is mainly for his late game where he constantly has W up, so this will feel easier to play against. Zig Q box increased. This makes it so that his Q is a little bit easier to hit. This is actually a pretty decent buff. It'll feel very easy to hit your Q. I like this because I'm a Ziggs player myself. Small buff to Lightning Jewel. We like this. Small nerf to Dustblade. I think this item, since its change, has been pretty strong. So it's been getting a couple of nerfs back to back. I think this is fine because honestly, Dustblade makes for a pretty annoying interaction, so I like to see this. They're changing how Lord Dom's damage application gets calculated, so this is meant as like a preemptive nerf because it's a buff from the damage application change. Small buff to Yumu's Ghostblade. We'll probably see this more often. It hasn't really been played much or used much recently, ever since the week of horror where everyone was going Yumu's Ghostblade. This was a very contested item, or it's not contested, everyone could buy it, but now you'll probably see more of it. You didn't see it very often, like at all, but now you'll probably see a couple more people start building this again. All right, the jungle changes. First of all, smites. They are decreasing the amount of damage it does to champions and pets. So this would include stuff like Annie, Tibbers for other pets. Just makes it so that smite is not used as a combat tool as often. And some minor changes where quality of life, where if you are using smites in close proximity, you can still use it on an epic monster. So if it's like, in this example, they have it as Cho'Gath being too big, and now you don't have to worry about that. All right, they're nerfing the jungle companions. I think they're pretty strong, so I personally like this, where a lot of them are gonna be weaker. I'm a big fan of nerfing jungle in general as a bot laner. But yeah, they'll be less strong. I think overall these changes are making it so that junglers don't have as much agency compared to what they have now. All right, these changes for the camp health is just making it so that it takes longer for them to clear. This, however, still means that it's just later on in the game. So early on, it will still mostly be the same, level 1 and 2. This change aims to nerf some of the regeneration that you get from doing jungle camp. So it makes it so that they don't get as much health. Whereas like before, you could jungle for a couple seconds, reach full health, do camp, you're fine. This will be a little bit less of that. Anti-poaching adjustments. This just makes it so that laners, when they do camps, it'll be harder for them to do. It's less incentive for people to constantly take your camps, and it'll feel a little bit better as a jungler. All right, lane minion experience adjustments. Just a good quality of life thing for laners as well. This is also, I think, on top of the jungle changes, this buffs the starter items. So this makes it so that laners are stronger. Small nerf to water walking. I personally don't take this much as a support, but I think a lot of other roles do take this. So less movement speed, a little bit stronger in the adaptive force. I think the movement speed is probably the biggest reason why you would take water walking. But now you'll be stronger in the river though. All right, snowballing adjustments. I think right now games do snowball very, very quickly, and a lot of times games are decided in like 15 to 20 minutes. This just makes it so that the dragons that you get are less good. But if you do, however, get soul it means that it's a very high chance that you're gonna win because they're buffing Soul. They're also nerfing the local gold that Rift Herald gives, and they're buffing the health of Baron. This is actually a pretty significant buff. So if you are doing Baron, be aware that it's gonna take a lot longer to do. And I think you have to be very wary, especially in lower elo, where sometimes you're doing Baron and it's not a Baron angle, it's gonna be a lot harder, so be careful about that. Changing a little bit of the death timers, basically making them shorter. This makes it so that it's also part of the snowballing changes, where if you die, it's not like over. This means that if you do die and you come out on the map, you have a play that you can make pretty quickly. So this is what I call death tempo. And you'll probably see more of that. They're nerfing turret plating by 50 gold, which is actually a pretty decent nerf. This just makes it so that lane bullies like Jace, or like in bot lane where you're playing like Caitlyn, it's less good for them to play champs like this because they're relying a lot of times on the plate gold. All right, we're now looking at rune adjustments. I think that across the board, they're basically changing how good they are, and it's nerfs across the board. So one interesting thing to see here is that they're not nerfing Glacial or Guardian or Aftershock, and they're nerfing a lot of the range supports runes. This just makes it so that melees are going to be even better than they are currently, which they are already in the meta. And yeah, we'll probably continue to see melees. And a bunch of other stuff that is not so important. And we have the new skins. So yeah, that's the patch. Quite a big one. So to recap, this is a pretty big patch. This is gonna be after the Worlds patch. So main things to look out for are the jungle changes. Jungle's gonna be a lot different. Second would be if there's like specific champions that you play that are getting changed a lot, it would be like Asante is very, very different. And then the snowballing adjustments where it's gonna be a lot harder to snowball. But overall, I think these are good changes for the game. Probably my favorite skin that is coming out would be Coven Nami. I like Nami, she has a nice skin. What's there not to love? And a small change that I like is the Ziggs change, because that is the 80 carry that I play when I get filled. So I always like stuff like this. Well, that was the patch 13.20 review presented by SIG. I hope you liked it.